Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Sparking Change with the League Stories from the Field webinar. My name is Marley Townsend, and I am the Communications Coordinator for the League of American Bicyclists. This is the first in our 2024 webinar series, and we're so excited to have all of you join us today. So before we get started, just a little bit of light housekeeping. This session is being recorded and it will be added to our YouTube channel, so you can look for it on our YouTube channel. You can also find our webinar archive at bikeleague.org/webinars. So you can stay tuned to our social media platforms for an announcement when it's uploaded and available. Attendees are muted, but we do definitely want your questions and comments. So feel free to type those into the Zoom Q&A or the chat anytime, and we will go through them during the Q&A session after all the presenters have wrapped up with their presentations. So before we dive too deep, I just want to introduce the League for those who aren't familiar. So the League of American Bicyclists is the oldest bicycle advocacy organization in America and possibly the world. We were founded in 1880 as the League of American Wheelmen, and early on we focused on the good roads movement to get the first paved roads for bicyclists to ride safely. So we have been in the advocacy space for hundreds of years, and our mission is to create a bicycle-friendly America for everyone. Today, the League continues to make biking better. As leaders, our commitment is to listen and learn, define standards, and share best practices to engage diverse communities and build a powerful and unified voice for change. And the League could not be what it is today without our national network of grassroots community support. We have over 180,000 members and supporters, over 1,000 local groups and clubs, and hundreds of bicycle-friendly businesses, communities, and universities in all 50 states and in DC. We know that we can't do this work alone, and today we're so excited to share with you some success stories from the field, from people who know firsthand that change can't happen independently. Sometimes all you need is a big idea and someone to invest in you, someone with, or an organization with the resources willing to make that big idea happen. That's exactly what we hope comes of our Community Spark program. And with that, I'll hand it over to Amelia to explain.
Thanks so much, Marley. Hi, everybody. I'm Amelia Neptune. I'm the director of the Bicycle Friendly America program at the League. And in 2022, we launched the Community Spark Grant program as an effort to support the grassroots change makers and organizations working on the ground all across the nation. This is a mini grant program that awards $1,500 to each recipient. And the types of projects that are eligible include education events, rides, giveaways, pop-up infrastructure, end-of-trip facilities, and more. And today I'm really excited that we'll hear from some of our past recipients, and we're also super excited to share our awardees for 2024. Next slide. The Spark Grant program would not be possible without the support of the Active People Healthy Nation initiative, which is a national initiative led by the CDC to help 27 million Americans become more physically active by 2027. So the Spark Grants are in part funded by the CDC because we know that community design for physical activity is a huge way to increase physical activity and improve health and other related outcomes for many people. So we're really excited to have this partnership ongoing with the CDC to be able to support these programs all across the country. Next slide. And we also have a number of our grantees are funded specifically by General Motors through their vehicle and road safety efforts. And the funding from GM is sort of earmarked for communities that have General Motors facilities or plants in their community. And so every year, a certain number of the Spark grants are set aside for GM communities. And we do have a list of those communities available on our website. So if you're curious whether you're eligible for the GM specific funding, you can check that out through our website. Next slide. As I mentioned, this program has been around only since 2022. So today we're announcing our third annual Spark Grant Awards. But it's been really exciting to see how the number of applications has risen over the years. We started with 89 and then 95. And this year we reviewed 140 applications, and we're really excited to award 15 Spark grants this year, thanks to the funding sources that I described a moment ago. And on the next slide, you will see a map of all the 2024 Spark grantees. And I'll put a link in the chat to the actual announcement and to more information about the Spark grants if you're interested in learning more. We are hoping that this continues to be an annual program. And this year we opened up our applications in November of 2023. So look for announcements, follow us on social media, and subscribe to the League's newsletter to keep an eye on the 2025 application process for our next Spark grants. But without further ado, I would like to hand it over to some of our previous Spark Grant recipients, some of whom are actually returning Spark Grants recipients again this year, who have really amazing stories. And the idea behind the Spark Grants is, it's not a lot of money. It's a mini grant program, but small, projects that can spark change and have bigger impacts, and also can be replicable in other communities. So we hope that you find inspiration from these stories in the field to make changes in your own community. And we definitely invite you to apply to the Spark Grants next year. So with that, I believe I am handing it over to Ryan from Flint, Better Block, Flint, Michigan. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Let's see if I get this right. All right. Can everybody got me? Thumbs up if you got me. Awesome. Okay. So yes, I'm from Flint, Michigan. I work with the Crimm Fitness Foundation, as far as helping, people in, communities and neighborhood engagement. So my day job, I'm a high school art teacher, and in the evenings I go and run bike clubs and, just kind of organize different events in the community. So we are a GM town, as you probably know, Flint, Michigan. This was our project last year, Better Block Flint. And Better Block Flint started with a neighborhood that is along what we call the Saginaw Trail. Saginaw Trail is an old Native American path that went from Detroit to Saginaw and runs right through the city of Flint. And where we are here, you can see the star. That is the location of our Better Block event. And it's right on the north side of the Flint River, an area that is very celebrated for us because it was once kind of the city center. The city center has moved further to the south. These are the famous arches that showed up in Flint, Michigan in the late 1890s. It's just a way to brighten up the downtown residential and a business district. And that's the exact location. What you're looking at is where we had our event. So this is what it looked like back in the early 1900s. It still has these same bones. You cross the river and the road splits into what is now MLK Boulevard and Saginaw Street. This photograph, as you can see, there's like a trolley, there's horse and buggies, there's pedestrians walking. And so we like to showcase these early photographs where there's multiple types of transportation being used on the street. And this one here, we have an actual car that's sort of down in the middle of the street. And again, this is just people using these roads in many different ways. There's a little baby in a cart. There's older people. There's young people. Fast forward to right after World War I, pre-World War II, we still have the trolley. But now we have more automobiles, but this is the block that we were working on right here for our Better Block project. These buildings do not exist anymore. So these were at least 10 different buildings with over 30 different businesses and residences above. And then in the 1950s, our General Motors town, the car has kind of taken over, despite the fact in this same location, this same street, there's a lot of people out. And this is the celebration of the 50 millionth General Motors car. and this has been painted gold in honor of that. And you can still see like this dense urban fabric that was designed for multiple types of transportation. And here we're celebrating this car because within a few years, that block that we saw earlier that had many different businesses is now just a hotel and a restaurant. And so you can see the city started to make changes as far as, reducing the size of the sidewalk. There's on-street parking. There's parking in the parking lot, which is something that is mandated by the city. And so the city started to really change. And by the 1980s, here we can see just a few people and what was a McDonald's for a few years and then became a diner / Coney Island restaurant is what we have in the 80s. So in less than 100 years, this street really changed dramatically in our city. This is an aerial view of that former McDonald's, and you can see all of the parking surrounding it. And you can see what was there at one point in time in the late 1800s, all of those different businesses, again, with residences above. And so we really wanted to showcase to the neighborhood, to the community, that this is what used to be on this block, and it doesn't have to be this empty, abandoned lot anymore. So throughout this process here, we looked to our existing city plans. This one here, which was written now like 10, 11 years prior to this, and it has not been updated. But we looked to those early plans and we brought those to community members. And we had different types of conversations with them on site about what they would like to see for this revitalization here. We had lots of surveys and conversations. And what we ended up with was these priorities that people were looking for. The people in this neighborhood, some of them live in apartment buildings, some of them live in single family homes, some of them live in condos. But one thing that was missing was the density, the shopping that used to be there, the safe sidewalks and bike lanes. And so these conversations really led to us creating this event around what they wanted. So we really engaged with this community and to such a degree that they came out and helped us clean up the site. This is a photograph of some of the younger group that came to help us out. Oftentimes, we get a lot of retirees and a lot of people that are established in their careers that can come out and volunteer. And it's rare, I guess, that you would see early 20-year-old kids coming out. And it was really awesome. They broke for the day for a little bit. And I thought, I don't know if they're coming back because they worked so hard and it was such a mess. And man, they came back early the next morning and did such an amazing job. And I think that just shows you how invested these kids were in this event. We had to build a lot of this furniture, which was some of the money that we had used through our Spark grant was to create furniture for this event. Furniture that was out near the street as like a traffic calming type of situation. We also had volunteers to help us paint, to help us put up some of our displays. This is more traffic calming furniture that we had, and we created these awesome bike lanes. Now we had some issues with our city around painting the streets, despite the fact that many parts of our city have been painted with murals and they're amazing. And some of our streets have been painted. They really were against it. And so we ended up getting these vinyl stickers for our bike lanes. And we also used, as you can see here, these colors are just duct tape. And so we created these crosswalks that were colorful and the double bike lane, as you can see there. So MLK right in front of where we hosted our event is like a 4-lane road, and we were able to narrow it down to 2 for this and then use the other 2 lanes for bike lanes. And what was great about this event was that we set up these bike lanes on like a Wednesday for our event that was going to take place over the weekend. And as we were setting them up, people were immediately coming by and using them. So to see that there's such a need where they normally would be on the sidewalk, they were like, hey, there's a bike lane here now. It's short. It's only a block long. But we had a guy on a Segway. The kid on the skateboard there is going fishing down to the river. So it was really cool to us just to see people, everyday people using this, not just people coming to the event to like test these lanes out, but everyday people using these bike lanes. This is a group that had come from Detroit, just an accident, and stopped by and said, wow, this bike lane is so great. This is one of the better bike lanes I've ever seen. And they're like, we don't have these in Detroit. And I'm like, we don't have these in Flint either. We want these in Flint, but the fact that people are out using them, we were able to show the city that is an important thing to all of our users. So this is in a before and after view. We had painted the grounds of our event where we would have the retail and music and stuff like that. And that abstract mural is representative of some of the original buildings that would have been existing there. So there's people who are walking around the grounds. We could say, hey, this used to be the hardware store, and this used to be the hat shop, and really engage with them on the retail aspect of this. So another big part of this at the event was really teaching people, educating them about, again, urbanism and transportation design, just so that some people that are young enough maybe didn't grow up in neighborhoods that looked this way. And if you grew up in a more rural or suburban area, you might not know that the city used to be more of a complete street type of thing. So we partnered with a bunch of local schools, colleges, and different nonprofits to create this information so that as people walked around the event, it was like, yeah, it's like a party. There's good food. You can buy some cool stuff and listen to music, but there's also these things that we want you to start to advocate for. And so we feel like, yeah, it was kind of a party for a lot of people. It was a lot of fun, but in the end, we really got a chance to get them to have learn some things. And then from that point, we could take that knowledge to city council meetings. And so that's sort of what happened next. So we had already created this environment with other nonprofits and schools in the city, but now we had the community engaged. And so we could go to them and say, there's a city council meeting. They're talking about putting bike lanes in and changing this part of the street. We need you to come and join in this conversation. And lo and behold, people were all excited to go because they had seen these demonstrations. And from that event, all of the city council member voted unanimously to support the addition of bike lanes on this one street that is being changed in our city. We've also been working to change a road that went through our city in the 1960s, a highway, which really systematically tore some neighborhoods apart. And one great thing is we haven't been able to get the change we've wanted, but again, we have this coalition of people now that are all fighting for the same thing, which is safer streets and bike lanes. So that has come of this. And also, some local real estate developers have started to show interest in putting new housing and mixed use developments in that neighborhood. So we have made from this event a lot of changes. So this fall we will be hopefully replicating this event in another neighborhood. One of the ways that we were to engage our city council members, there's 9 wards in Flint, and one of the ways that we were to engage with them is to say, we promise to show up in each of your wards with this type of event because we know that your neighborhoods and your community members are important to you. So if you can get on board and support us we'll come to you eventually and try and make your streets safer. So that's my presentation. And I'm not, there we go. Perfect.
And I think next up is Justin Crowe. Is that right? In the run of show?
Yes. So one, I was asked to fill in for our president and CEO. I would love to say last minute, but it was longer than last minute. So, but I also did not know I was supposed to make a presentation. So Ryan has already shown me up. So I just have words. So you just have to listen to me talk, I guess. So I'm the senior director of program living for Hope House Ministries. We are located in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and most people know Bowling Green because Corvettes are made here. That's kind of our claim to fame. We've got some caves and things like that. But the main thing people, when we say Bowling Green, they think of Corvettes. So we are a GM town. I don't know if they are the ones that did this, but about 2 years ago, the downtown area, which is where Hope House is located, really started revamping the streets and putting in bike lanes everywhere. I mean, it was, and I'm just going to be honest. At first, I was like, "Why are they doing this? Nobody rides bikes down here." Well, I think it was because they didn't have a bike lane to ride in, and because now you see people doing it all the time. And so Bowling Green is it's less than 100,000, even with the college students that are here. Western Kentucky University is located here, and it is a majority subdivision, small community. There's just pockets of subdivisions everywhere. However, the old school Bowling Green, the people that were born and raised here in the 50s, 60s, remember the downtown area. Kind of what Ryan was describing about Flint is it used to be much different. It did not used to be the other side of the tracks, as people basically call it now. It used to be the hustle and bustle of the entire city. There's a city square. There is all these businesses that, just like what he was describing, have gone out of business. They've mostly been replaced by other businesses. It's not an economic downturn necessarily, but it is definitely not what they remember. And what happened about 15 years ago is when Hope House Ministries started. We were just a poverty alleviation place. Essentially, we were handing out food boxes. And what we started noticing was the same people were showing up every week. They weren't necessarily, I mean, they were getting temporary help for that week, but they weren't getting any major life change. So we read a book, which I would encourage everyone on here to read, because I encourage everybody to read it. It's called When Helping Hurts. And it was a kind of a game changer for us. And we started looking at, well, how are some of the things that we are doing actually enabling and hurting people? Instead of giving them a hand up, we're just giving them a handout. So how can we revamp our approach to all of these things? Doesn't mean we did away with anything free. It just revamped how we framed that to the individuals, to the families, all of that stuff. We are a ministry, so everything we do is gospel centered and faith based. But that doesn't mean everybody that comes through our doors is. So about 9 years ago, I'm leading up to how this relates to the bikes, I promise. 9 years ago, we had people coming into our doors constantly. Do you have anything for addiction? Do you have anything for addiction? And at the end of the day, our answer was no. I mean, we would obviously try to help them as best we could in the moment, but as far as like an actual solution of any kind, we had nothing. And what we started seeing was that Bowling Green had nothing. And even to this day, I think a lot of people, because of the subdivision, and if you don't have to go downtown, like there's no reason that you're just passing through downtown. And this gentrification of Bowling Green has just kind of continued to push people towards this area of town. And what used to be hustle and bustle is now low income housing, rundown housing, and or abandoned housing. And a lot of people would probably say that Bowling Green doesn't have a drug problem, when in essence, being as close to Nashville as we are, We have a major drug problem. And 9 years ago, and there's a long story that is just an incredible story of, people call it coincidence, we call it God, but of how we ended up where we did. But a guy came to us after we were having to tell people no, that we don't have anything for addiction. A guy came to us and said, "Hey, I've been trying to do this halfway house and I don't know what I'm doing. The house is right over here and within walking distance of our main office. Could you take kind of ownership of this? You have the infrastructure, I have the house. We'll kind of make a deal." Well, the house is on, if you're familiar with Bowling Green, you know exactly where it's at, but it's where all the drugs are basically sold and done in this alley. Not all, I shouldn't say all, a lot. There's a lot of drugs that are constantly done. We see people all the time. We know the homeless people there by name, all of the same faces kind of wandering through there. So we were like, sure. So we opened this recovery home. At the time, it was 8 people and four sets of bunk beds. And we were having to turn people away left and right. So there was a house next door to us that was a trap house, for lack of a better word, and it was condemned, and we bought it, and then we tore it down, and the neighborhood was walking by cussing us because we were tearing down their free housing, or their free, go there and hang out for a few hours, if you know what I mean, housing. So we built another that is 2 floors and holds 16 residents. Well, I told you I was getting to the bikes. Here we are. What we realized when we moved these gentlemen in is, one, people do want to work. So that was already a part of our program. Our program was built to get them back into the work environment, to get them back into stable income. But what we realize is a lot of these people, and I'm not saying I do or don't agree with with this. That's a different conversation for a different day. But Kentucky has really cracked down on DUIs. So a lot of our guys are not getting their license back at any point soon. We're a 12-month residential treatment. People live there for 12 months. But that doesn't mean they're getting their license back in 12 months. So one major barrier to work here, Bowling Green is set up. I mean, there's a lot of factories there, but most of them are located in 2 places. There's a North Trans Park and a South Trans Park. So one of those is close to us and one of those is not. So we have a shuttle system that will drive people to and from work to eliminate that roadblock for work. Well, what we realize is not everybody wants to work at the trans parks, and that's the only place we really go. But they can't get a license. So we have built a lot of relationships where businesses will give our guys a chance because of the classes that we put them through, Jobs for Life, Faith and Finances, things like that, that they will hire our guys even if they have felonies on their record, but they're not going to come pick them up. So these bikes have given us the opportunity to say, okay, we trust this guy at this point to leave our premises, because it's not a come and go as you please type halfway house. We trust this guy enough to leave our premises with our property, and that he'll come back safe and sober. And it has given us the opportunity to widen the range of, no, you have to work right there where we already go. We had a guy just the other day, he was previously a cook at Waffle House, and for whatever reason, that's exactly where he wanted to go back and work. Well, we don't do transportation to Waffle House, and he was able to do that. So, but beyond that, what we have also learned is the incredible value of physical exercise on mental health. I think a lot of people would agree we have a mental health crisis in America, and I would also agree with that. But I think some of that stems from people are also sitting in their houses and not getting outside, not getting exercise, not going to the gym, not going to wherever. And they're just kind of cooped up. COVID didn't help, all of that. But if people would be willing to give exercise a chance, I think it would clear their mind a lot more as well. I'm not anti-medicine, but I think some of that would be eliminated. And what we try to do with these guys that have over-medicated themselves for so long is they come in thinking, I need every every drug you will allow me to take in your drug rehab, I probably want to try to do the antidepressants, antipsychotics. I'm bipolar. I'm this. And many times what we find out is we sign them up for CrossFit. That's part of our program. But not everybody can do that. We have older people in our program that, I mean, they can't do, a lot of people can't do CrossFit because CrossFit is hard. That's the whole point. But we make them go down there. Well, then they can't do the workout. Well, it's not like you just get to stand around. So we have this other option of, if you don't want to walk, if you don't want to run, then you can ride a bike. And this, it has not eliminated all medicine. Some people still need medicine. But you would be shocked at how much medicine has, we'll go to refill their medicine and it's like half full and they're like, oh yeah, I don't take that anymore. I don't need that anymore. Now we have a doctor or a nurse practitioner that guides them through that. So they're not just throwing it out the window, but, it has helped that was I mean, we knew exercise was good, but it has kind of helped in an unexpected way in that regard. And the good thing is because Bowling Green, like I said, has already kind of started revamping their roads to have bike lanes. We don't even have to lobby for that. At least where we are now, if they were somewhere else, that probably would, but, the area where we're located, it's already pretty well equipped for them to do that. So it's kind of been a twofold blessing for us where we thought it would basically just be a onefold. I'm not sure if that covers everything. We also have a women's facility, same story over there. We now opened a women's facility 2 years ago. So the men's been for 9 years. The women, again, I think Bowling Green and myself included would have said that addiction was mainly a male problem, and it's just not. And we had a lot of women coming to us and asking, do you have anywhere for us to go? And didn't. So we went about trying to solve that problem. Same thing over there. So we have men's and women's sized bikes to where, hopefully just about anybody that comes to our program would have the opportunity to use one. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. I think I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Mickey. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's so inspiring. I really love learning about all the ways in which people are using their Spark funding. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we at the University of Miami, BikeSafe and WalkSafe programs, were able to do with our 2023 Community Spark Funds. And as the title alludes, we had something to do with some pop-up protection and some tactical urbanism type techniques. Before I jump into exactly what we did with the funds, I want to let you know who we are. So back in 2002, the University of Miami created an injury prevention program known as WalkSafe, which is the sister program to our BikeSafe program, which was started in 2010. And so when we got together and decided to create this nonprofit, we had this three-pronged mission that you see on the slide, and it continues to guide everything that we do, largely to decrease the number of kids that are hit by cars while walking or biking. Secondarily, to promote physical activity by way of walking and biking. And thirdly, to educate about safer pedestrian and bicycling infrastructure and to encourage the use of walkable and bikeable environments. And so we haven't been able to reach over 1 million kids without our collaboration with the schools. And so since our inception, we've had a really wonderful partnership with the Miami-Dade County Public School System, which presently, I think it's the third largest. It keeps vacillating between fourth and now third largest school district in the nation. And so we're very grateful. We, as an injury prevention group, research group, I think stand out because we meet a lot with in various professional settings with other injury prevention programs, and they're always like, how are you getting the reach that you get? And I really have my hats off to the school district for being so willing to work with us. And in fact, we have what's called a train the trainer model, where we have these curricula that we developed to be taught in the schools. So Ryan, I think it was Ryan saying that he's an art teacher. We have for our WalkSafe program, it's taught by homeroom art and PE teachers. And for BikeSafe, it's taught by PE teachers, and they're mandated by our school board. And so we have this existing annual implementation of our education in the schools. And of course, we've gone about publishing this. I mean, as a research institution, We continue to report in academic literature about how we're doing and making sure the word is out on what's effective in terms of injury prevention. However, we really have moved in this direction, talking about infrastructure. Our stance at present is that really the future of youth bicycle safety is directly affected by equitable, safe bike facilities. So there was a landmark 13-year study by Marshall and Ferenczak. I have the cover slide there, the cover of the journal article there. Many of you probably have heard about it, but they looked at 12 major metropolitan US cities. So I'm located in sunny Miami-Dade, Florida. And so we want to compete with other metropolitan US cities. So I think it's a pretty good comparison there. And what they found was that protected bike lanes are the single most effective way to prevent bike injuries and fatalities, even more so than helmets. So as researchers, we're really allowing current science, current data to guide our evolving methodology. A lot of other injury prevention programs geared at decreasing numbers of kids that end up being hurt, injured or killed, by walking and biking. Their emphasis has historically been on user behaviors, helmet use, and I always say helmets and high vis, as if that's the end all be all. But in fact, especially this massive paper, this landmark paper, demonstrates here it's infrastructure that has the more impactful role here in decreasing these numbers. And so it brings me to what our community spark funds were used for. And so the wide-ranging impact of our grant, our community spark mini grant, was used to do three things, because we love three prongs, was to serve traditionally marginalized communities by way of reimagining their built environment through pop-up protected bike lanes. Secondarily, we wanted to encourage communities to actively take part in the transformation of their neighborhood. And thirdly, to increase the rates of active travel. And so our funds came in just in time for last summer for us to be able to use the funds to pay for the paint and the supplies that would be needed to put on events like this. We had an ongoing conversation with the branch manager at the North Miami Public Library, and they wanted to host a one-day, bike safety event with kids, local kids in the community who would come to learn bike safety from us. And so we put on a Learn to Ride bike safety event at the library in North Miami with assistance from the North Miami Police Department. We do have a bike trailer now with a small bike fleet of learning bikes of all sizes, from really littles to adults. And they all have folding pedals. And so we were able to get that bike trailer transported by the North Miami Police. And the trailer and the bikes, that came from other funds, but it was this collaboration and the use of the spark funds that allowed us to be able to do all of these fun activities with the kids and do the paint, etc. And so we had our cones, our learning bikes, our safety equipment accessible on the day of the event. We put Zikla zippers in place. You may see them here, that we have in stock to demonstrate what a protected bike lane looks like. So it's almost like, the idea of doing the bike safety stations that are, all the typical starting and stopping and all the things that the league teaches, that we were able to teach the kids, but using this creative, immersive kind of ideal environment in which they could learn. And so in the area of North Miami where this is taking place, it's got over 80% of the population identifying as a minority, and almost 20% of the population in this area is living in poverty or below the poverty line. And so the per capita income there is a little over $25,000, and that's per the latest US Census. So we were grateful that we were able to be in this community, reach these children on this special day. We had kids that were ranging in age from, the really littles, the elementary age, all the way up to middle school, up to 8th grade. And so what we did was we had indoor at the library and then outdoor on bike. And we had the older kids outdoor, and the indoor, the little kids, and then they swapped midway through. So it was a really wonderful event. We had a lot of engaged kids. We were able to give out helmets, because that's another thing that us as a nonprofit, we have affiliation with the Department of Transportation here, and they have a Ped Bike Resource Center where we're able to obtain those to be able to give those out. So the kids had a blast. We had a blast. We were super happy to be able to have this be the first event with our community spark funds. The second of the two events we were able to put on with the funding has to do with Matilda Street. So you can see on the slide there a little picture of part of our flyer for a protected bike lane in the Coconut Grove neighborhood of Miami. And so this has been an ongoing kind of community collaboration we've been having with this neighborhood for a little over 2 years now, I want to say, where we have worked with, I'd say 2022, we have worked in partnership with various local advocacy groups in that area, specifically this area, this neighborhood of Miami called Coconut Grove. So there's Bike Coconut Grove, Grove Connect, as well as the Miami Police Department. We were able to demonstrate what a small pop-up bike lane in front of this school, elementary school on Matilda Street can produce. And so we did this, you know, over the past few years, and it's gotten better and better every year. And this year we were able to make it the best ever, thanks to the funding from the Community Spark Grant. We've had more people keep finding out about it. And so we have one of the county commissioners taking part in getting herself dirty, getting some paint on her, and various members of the PTA, the kids there, local neighborhood transportation planning organization came out, not to this one, but the more recent one, which I'm going to let our video speak for itself. And I got to give props to Kurt Kaminer for putting this together, our communications manager here at BikeSafe. So I'm going to let them speak for itself.
This was a fantastic day because today was the third Matilda Street pop-up bike lane that we have done over the last 3 years.
We do these pop-up protected bike lanes so that there is an opportunity for children to get to school in a safe way using some form of transportation where they otherwise may not have the safe infrastructure in place. We are going to have a painting party.
It's washable paint, so if you get a little bit on you, come off.
Oh, to work with the kids is so much fun. And they're so enthusiastic about doing something, participating, and doing something good for the school, and then something they're going to use tomorrow. Experience with them, and they will bring it back into wherever they live, whether it's in Miami or it's another city. When they're on their bikes tomorrow, you'll see them. They're so proud that it was them who painted the bike lane.
Last year was so successful, we thought, let's demonstrate this again and really evaluate it.
But they're very excited and they're all cooking green paint.
It's an early morning here at Coconut Grove Elementary. We got the bike lane painted yesterday, and we're just waiting for everybody to get together at Blanche Park. I'm going to hop on my bike and meet everybody. It's like a mini Utrecht in the Netherlands.
It's a testament to show how much the environment actually plays a role in behavior.
If we had more of these lanes, we'd have more people riding, whether it's to school or to work, and they feel protected. Just think about how we can actually improve upon increasing physical activity and having less cars on the road.
We were able to count over 100 coming from one direction. So it's definitely an undercount. And so if you re-envision your environment to have safer ways for people to move about their space, they will take advantage of it.
And we'll see you at the next one.
So that event was able to lead to almost 25% reduction in vehicular traffic on the day of the event from one day to the next. And this was data that I'm showing here is actually 30% reduction in the previous pop-up protected bike lane, which was a different time of year. So, and it's just data collected over a 1 hour period of time during drop off. So we know this is an effective way to get people out, reimagining their space, utilizing active forms of transit. You know, I love that this money comes from from the CDC Active People Healthy Nation, because it really is all about being able to find and almost sneak in ways to move about, to add in physical activity, not necessarily for the purpose of recreation, but just for the purpose of movement. And of course, as a data-driven institution, we're still collecting data on these events. What we found here in Coconut Grove is that over 80% of the student body at least sometimes uses active travel, and over 90% of the students live within 5 miles or less of the school. 61 of which are less than 1 mile from the school. So, it's makes sense that a school community like this would embrace changes in their environment like this, make it easier to get to school without needing to get in an automobile or any other type of transportation. So what's telling though is that over 3/4, nearly 80%, 77% there of parents said that they would like to see the installation made permanent. So that's the point, right? Whenever we do these kind of tactical urbanism borrowed techniques to kind of test the waters, the idea is let them see how it would look, instead of immediately rejecting change, and let's see what they think about long-term making it be what exists. And so we're seeing that, though Coconut Grove has really not been, by and large, a challenging community, and maybe some other communities more challenging. What Ryan was talking about in Flint, I'm very curious to know how you got the word out and how you got community buy-in, because while we have a great situation going on in the area of Coconut Grove, we still have a massive county to work on. We want to make sure we can see changes like this all throughout the county. So as much insight as I can glean from you all, the better, so that we can continue to see successes. And from our part, it really is a matter of having the right collaborators and having everyone be involved in this, because in fact, properly designed protected bike lanes really are inherently equitable for all ages and abilities. And so we've started to embrace this as a novel new technique in what's new to the field of injury prevention, where a lot of folks are still focusing on kind of punitive aspects of penalties for not wearing helmets and things like that, which I'm not trying to downgrade the importance of wearing a helmet, but I am trying to talk about the importance of something like protected bike lane. The correct infrastructure will have a much more lasting, longer term, larger injury prevention effect than a singular, helmet per se. So we want to get our community members involved in being able to kind of think outside the box, think about active transportation, equity, and street design, and all by getting, this firsthand experience of redesigning their streets. So we thank you so much for this Community Spark Grant. We were super excited to see when we got funded for it. We've got all forms of social media on here. My colleague Kurt Kaminer is in charge of everything communications for us. So follow us at BikeSafe on any of these platforms. The code there will take you to our website, which will also link to all of our social media. So we've got a ton of info out there, and we appreciate the league for this recognition. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mickey. And thank you to all of our presenters. That was really great. We do have a few minutes, so if any attendees have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. And thank you to Kurt for putting in some links to those videos that Mickey showed. So definitely encourage you to check those out for more and share them with others to hopefully inspire similar activities in your communities. And as far as Q&As go, I would love to also start with the question Mickey posed to Ryan about how you got the word out and, partners, coalition building, all of that. Sort of what are your hot tips for that?
So we're kind of fortunate, and the Crimm Fitness Foundation has been putting on a road race since the 1970s, over 40 years. And there's 10,000 runners that run in that event. So our email list is huge. Our social media doesn't always get the likes that we would like, but I think that in our town, people are familiar with us. So when we send out information countywide, we get a lot of feedback off of that. But within the city limits, we do struggle in some neighborhoods. We have purposely chosen neighborhoods that already have a strong community organizations. And I think that's benefited us. People that we know that already have some groundwork laid so that we're not just scrambling to get help. But I think that those are our two ways that we've done that.
And Mickey, if I can turn a similar question to you, through our bicycle friendly community program, we encourage everyone to work with their local school districts. And I'm curious if you have any words of wisdom since you have had so much success working with the school district.
I mean, I think it's really critical to have really willing partners. I don't want to take credit for frankly, you know, when our boss, you saw her on the film, Dr. Jillian Hotz, when she was tasked with trying to bring the numbers down of these kids ending up in our trauma center. She went to the school district, and the director of PE and health literacy, who at the time was Dr. Jane Greenberg, who now works as a consultant with us because she's retired and she gets to do whatever she wants now. She was like, this is awesome. Let's get this. We're not going to just bring this to 1 or 2 schools. We're letting the entire school district have access to this. So it was really their combined vision. I want to give credit to them, because I will say there are probably, I have no doubt, school districts that have people in charge of something like health literacy and PE who are not as willing to provide these things for whatever reason. And that's a big roadblock. So I'd say be persistent, but you know, it often is just who you're working with. I want to say that it's so funny because once you get buy-in from the relevant stakeholders, the conversation goes from, you know, this will never pass to, of course we would all be behind, who would not be behind this? And I've seen this time and time again. So you do have to keep trying, and whether you have one roadblock, maybe it's then you go to the school board members, which every year, thankfully, we have this recognition by the school board in the end of the school year. We go to their school board meeting, and our BikeSafe program, our sister program, gets recognized because we do a countywide art contest. And so we always make sure we don't lose a school board champion. So every year, if a school board champion, a school board member is moving on to something else in their career, we make sure we target somebody new and ask them to get meetings set up. So would you like to be our school board champion? You've always been behind our efforts and things like that. So going at the right level, you know, and I say that in a way that, like, again, we all want the same thing. We all want kids to be safe and adults to be safe. And so if it means making sure the right administrators are behind you and almost, you know, forcing the hand of people to implement your programs, then I think that's not a bad thing. So yeah, I would say almost top down, but go to the right entities to make sure that they back you. It's really important.
Awesome. Thank you. And Justin, your turn for a question. I consider you all the kinds of partners that I'm always telling bike advocates and bicycle planners and communities to find in their community because we do think, you know, creative partnerships with different kinds of entities to reach all audiences across the community is so important. And so thinking about things like reentry or recovery homes. So curious from your perspective, any advice for a bike advocate or a bike professional in a community trying to figure out how to approach a group like yours in their community? Any tips for what they should say or how to broach the subject?
Honestly, one, nonprofits, if you are offering them anything for free, are pretty much on board. So that would be the first step. But the most places, if you're talking strictly recovery homes and or halfway houses, fully understand the need for alternative transportation because of the DUI situation, especially in Kentucky. I can't speak for every other state because I don't know exactly what they've done, but in Kentucky, it's, you know, you're losing your license for an entire year after the first or second one, just depending on your situation. But it's up to 5 years after the second one. So alternative methods of transportation and job placement is of utmost importance to every recovery home that I know of, because they either A, don't have places to send them because they won't take felons, or B, if they do find the place to send them, they don't have a way to get them there. And again, nonprofits, we're lucky we do have a van for our shuttle, but most places don't. So we get a ton of our customers for our shuttle from the other recovery homes in Bowling Green. And so any city is going to have that problem. If they have the problem that requires the recovery home, they have the problem of getting them job placement and transportation to those jobs. So that would be the number one. The exercise they'll figure out, kind of like we did secondhand, of like, hey, this is just an extra point. But the work, well, I was going to say something. I don't want to be disparaging. The work aspect and the transportation aspect, it is going to resonate because they all struggle with it.
That's great. Thanks for sharing those insights. I have one other question, but Marley, if you have anything or if you've seen anything in the chat.
You asked my question that I was going to
Okay.
ask to Justin. So well done.
Okay, perfect. If we have a minute, just a real quick, Ryan, I know you said you're replicating this in another neighborhood. Is there anything major that you learned that you're doing differently from last year's project compared to this year's project?
I think the engagement with the community, we thought we had enough flyers out. Like I said, we've got this email database that's huge. And the days when we were setting up people in those neighborhoods that we had just blanketed this neighborhood with signage and flyers, they'd walk by and say, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "How do you not know what's happening? Like in your building, there's posters and there's things." And so I think that this year we are trying to find a way within those existing community organizations to have them get the word out rather than us being the only way, letting them be the disperser of this information. That's one thing we're doing differently.
And I saw you guys you were posting there some of the press, like you had probably press releases out for a lot of things, because I saw you got positive press. That's important, and that's really, really good.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately right now, so many people are not reading our local newspapers at all. So it's like we really have to spread it out across as many different sources as possible to hopefully hit it. Even social media is like I said, when we'll do a post, we might get a handful of likes. I'm like, I know we have way more people that are on social media than that, but we're getting there.
Cool. And in our last couple of minutes, I'll turn it back to Marley to share with everybody about our next webinar.
Yes, let me just get the screen going.
While you're doing that, I will just say thank you so much to our speakers today. All three of you have inspiring stories, and I'm really excited and honored that we were able to support your work and really appreciate you being willing to share. And I hope that we've inspired some other folks around the country to partner or do some of the great kinds of projects that you all have done with the Spark Grants.
And then lastly, we just want to plug our next webinar in the series. It's going to be not next week, but the week after that, on April 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So join us for our Bike Month Challenge launch for our Make Every Ride Count initiative in partnership with Love to Ride. It'll be a good one. So we don't have a link ready yet, but you can find this registration link as well as the recording of this webinar on bikeleague.org/webinars. And that's all.
Great. Thanks everyone for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.